Okay, I believe we are live. Just checking there with the YouTube, make sure we are live. This is Nate and Jen, Life Matters series on parenting, episode number 12. And so we want to just dive right into this important topic relating to parenting and technology concerns.
So we thought that this would be a really relevant topic no matter what age your children are, from little ones all the way up to teens and young adults. Dealing with technology is just part of life as a parent in 2020 now.
Yeah.
And really, that's because there's been this unprecedented growth in technology, personal technology, even over the last decade. Our parents sure didn't have to deal with what we have to deal with now. I know they had other difficulties, but I think Nate and I see this as a really big parenting challenge, how to be responsible, how to guide our children through navigating all of the personal technology
Yeah.
challenges.
Our parents probably their biggest challenge with us was or is Jennifer on the rotary phone late at night talking to Nate when she's not supposed
Right,
to,
right.
and we had some computer games, but it was like, Apple, the early stage Apple computers and things like that. There
Yeah,
wasn't internet, so you didn't have all this other junk that could be, foisted upon your kids.
yeah. Maybe you on the Atari, right?
Yeah, but no internet access.
Yeah,
So,
no internet.
playing Asteroids or Pac-Man or,
Yep.
even the Nintendo, those games, there were some games that you could get that, were inappropriate or had some mature stuff, but they had different problems at that time when we were
Definitely.
teenagers. But so now it's, Satan has upped the ante. I mean, when you think about it, the system of this world. So we're going to
Hmm.
expose some of that and give you guys some food for thought and hopefully some parenting tools to put in your toolbox.
Yeah. So now we have new gadgets. We have constant access via the internet, Wi-Fi. We've got virtual reality. We've got YouTube. We've got apps. And some of them are completely innocent, but some of them are very dangerous.
Yes.
Um, Young children even have access to the internet. Through their iPhones that their parents have given them or their parents' iPhones. Even some toddlers have tablets to play on. And so this is really something that we need to be thinking about what's appropriate, how to put safeguards into place.
You can
Um,
access the internet through your Xbox or
yep,
PlayStation or almost any type of gadget or game is you can do streaming, you can do internet, you can do hardwire to the internet. So there's a lot of access points.
yep. And I kind of have a soapbox about this. I kind of feel like as much as we need internet, it's kind of sad. I mean, when I was a kid, it seems like there was a lot more imaginary play. You know, kids would just make forts and play with blocks, and you didn't have to be wired into anything.
Yeah.
Reading books has decreased. And I know that there are some good things, some playful things, some, reading online and learning apps that kids get to use nowadays, and that's great. But I do have some concern about the trade off. I
Mm.
also, in social work, have done some studying around sleep hygiene. And sleep hygiene, or how well young generations are sleeping, has really declined since all of
Mm.
these electronics have come into play. That can lead to behavioral issues. If a kid is not getting the sleep that they need, they're not growing, they're not maybe able to learn the next day at school because they're just not getting the sleep that their bodies demand and their brains demand to continue to develop normally.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of issues to be in consideration here. We want to give a few suggested ground rules, food for thought. Many of these things we've implemented in the past or even still have going now. Some of these are just things that we haven't necessarily used all the time, but we're like, hey, this would have been really good to have at our disposal. So,
Right.
number one, to keep devices in open areas of the home. In other words, kids are going to want to go hang out in their room. They're going to want to go hang out in the basement or whatever. As best as you can, try to make sure that when they're accessing these technologies, that they're in an open area where adults are present. I know there's no way possible that that's going to be a hard and fast thing all the time, but the more you can keep those devices and the access, at least near where an adult is,
Right.
it's going to cut back on the temptation and different things, and it's going to, give you an opportunity to respond to something if you hear or see something that's inappropriate. It might just be something innocent, that they stumbled
Mm-hmm.
onto and they're just kind of surprised by it. Don't let kids take these devices into their homes, especially, or into their bedrooms, especially like overnight or through the night. Jennifer's going to address that a little bit more. But we think about pornography is everywhere. When I was a kid, pornography was a magazine. It was a book, maybe a VHS tape or something along
Mm-hmm.
those lines, a movie. But it's everywhere now. It's at the touch of a button, the touch of a finger swipe. And it's not a matter of if your child will see it, even in Christian homes and whatever else. If we're
Mm-hmm.
not vigilant, it's when, because they're going to see it somewhere. They're going to see it in town. They're going to see it at school. They're going to see it at work. They're going to, see it at, an electronics store. If somebody opens something
Mm-hmm.
up, it's going to be in the palm of
Yeah.
their hand,
Yeah.
literally.
Pop-ups and
Pop-ups,
all kinds of, yeah.
all types of
Mm-hmm.
advertisements and videos. And there's no 100% foolproof way to insulate our kids from that, of course, but we have to be careful of things attached to gaming sites and hashtags and social media and, even stuff like Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest. There's all kinds of stuff if you really want to look for it. There's
Mm-hmm.
inappropriately dressed people and, suggestive stuff, adult sites.
Yep.
And most people don't realize this, but even there's a lot of pornography and what they would call soft core porn that have some type of a site on these widely used social media. It's not as racy as their actual site, but it'll advertise for,
Right.
and sometimes they can slip links in there. And the thing is that yeah, there's standards, and yeah, you can report it, but until somebody reports it and it's investigated and changed, it only takes one link, one unmonitored link to take your child down a path perhaps of almost no return. So we need to be careful with that because a lot of the stuff that's viewable on the internet can end up being an addiction. It can be a
Mm-hmm.
emotional, mental, spiritual, physical addiction. So we can, however, put many protections in place, and we can do our best to be vigilant as parents and stay on top of that. And I mean, it's more work. I mean, let's be honest. Parenting today, I
Yes.
think, in some ways, is more work, especially when you're combating technology. And Satan, he has so many things in his arsenal at his disposal relating to technology that we have to be vigilant and we have to work as a team. If there are
Mm-hmm.
two parents in the home, you got to work as a team.
Definitely. So yeah, keeping devices in open areas of the home. If you have a family computer, put it in the den or the living room, and that's to stay where the parents can kind of monitor what's going on.
Yeah.
Our second suggested rule is to install filtering software or filtering apps and use parental controls. So you can download different filtering softwares and you can also use parental controls on different sites like Netflix or YouTube. There's parental controls built in. Now, a lot of times they're kind of hard to find, and you
Hmm.
really have to look around and do your homework and go find out how to use these. But that's
Yeah.
really our responsibility, isn't it? Um,
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to allow our kids access to it, and think about it like this, if we're going to allow the world access to our children through these devices and outlets, then we owe it to ourselves to take a few minutes, even, 30 minutes if it takes, to find out how do I use this, what kind of controls do I have.
yeah.
And you know what? The kids are they're gonna fuss about it, right? And some sites, if you put it on a certain lower setting, it's going to automatically block some of the things that are okay and aren't inappropriate. Gaming sites, the various social media. So you will have to learn. In some cases, your kid's going to come to you and complain and say, "Well, you took it off of 17 rating, but now I can't, play my game because it won't let me get through. It's blocking
Mm-hmm.
my game." Well, you'll have to manually input the link. You'll have
Yep.
to click and paste appropriate links, add certain sites and links to your controls, and that way, your kids can still access the appropriate things, and you can have peace of mind knowing that there's a measure of control.
Yep. So, yes, this is going to require you to be educated about how to use these. There's even ways that you can put different levels of settings on your router and your internet. But these require work, like Nate said, and you will need to monitor them frequently because apps have updates on them that might change the way that you did the parental settings. You just need to stay on top of it. So if you allow your child to have technology, you need to understand your responsibility to be active in setting it up and monitoring it. You cannot allow your child to navigate this uncharted territory alone. I mean, even adults, I mean, you see it on social media, even adults have trouble behaving themselves on the internet.
Yes.
So why would we...
Even Christian adults.
Yes, believers can't get along sometimes. Believers post things that are not appropriate sometimes. So why would we let our kids just wander through and have to just have open access to really this scary scary thing that Satan has used for some bad things.
These are portals to both good and evil, and so we have to recognize that. And then let's see, number 3, have children turn in the devices at bedtime for multiple reasons. Now you're going to catch some flack from certain kids.
Nate and I, we've been told by our kids that we are the only ones in the world who make their kids turn in their stuff at bedtime.
Wow, I know.
I guess that makes us special.
We're losers sometimes.
Yeah, we're willing to be that weird parent who cares enough to have that struggle.
Yeah, we're those parents, you know.
Yeah.
So the reason why, or some reasons why you should have them turn these in at night, number 1, so they can sleep. And Jennifer mentioned to this about, the blue light and all of these, technology. You have all the notifications, especially, what if their friend or boyfriend or girlfriend or people from school or whatever, or even just random, wrong messages and notifications from apps and things, emails. All of these noises are going to alert them, wake them up. If their friend is asking them a question about something, they're going to get locked into that. Then they're going to say, oh man, I got to check my Clash of Clans, to make sure my clan isn't getting killed or whatever. Yeah. And pretty soon it's 2, 3 in the morning, and so it can really disturb them. A lot of their friends will be up, probably later than them. Mm-hmm. If you're a home that has standards and you're not afraid to be the bad guy to enforce some of those, there's going to be that. So you've got to have them turn this in. The blue light represents the body's production of serotonin, which allows us to settle down and go to sleep. And so when you're looking at a screen, when you're watching a video, playing a game right before you go to bed, it doesn't help your child settle down. In fact, it'll do the reverse, It's going to rev them up, and it gets their mind going. Takes longer to kind of relax.
Yeah, I have a friend at work who was telling me that she lets her kids go to bed with their tablets, and then, eventually they'll fall asleep after they've played a game or watched a video, but they're really having trouble sleeping. And I was very gentle about it, but I'm thinking to myself, well, what did you think is going to happen? Really, that blue light tells your body it's still daytime, I'm going to stay up, and it's hard to wind down after that. So there's better ways. Your child could actually read a book at bedtime, like a real book with covers.
How about the Bible?
Yeah.
Maybe read with your child is the last thing you do before you pray and they go to sleep.
Yeah. I saw a cute meme recently that said there's no app to replace the lap, like reading, with your child on your lap if they're still...
If they're small
enough.
Yeah, we don't read with kids in our lap anymore because most of them are my size. So.
But we used to read every night with our kids in bed, and lots of books, and or let them listen to a recording of a story and to help them go to bed. And most experts suggest shutting off all screens at least an hour before bedtime. So I'm gonna have to pry them out of their hands. But you may have heard, there is kind of an addictive quality to screen time. Our brains like those hits of dopamine, and even as adults, when we get a notification,
gotta get those likes.
Yeah, it's a reward center kind of thing in our brain. So we have to help our kids manage that technology craving.
Yeah, definitely. And, children, teens are more likely to access inappropriate websites or social media or whatever at night. I mean, let's be honest, there's less activity in the house. The parents are probably already asleep, or they're out, if you have let your kid have their technology in their room, we have one kid who's in the basement, we have a couple other kids all the way down the hall. So, there's no way we can monitor that at night if they have access to it. And, we kept a power strip on a desk that was in our bedroom, and still to this day, where our kids plug their stuff in at night. And it's a little bit of a hassle because you have to make sure, did everybody turn their stuff in? It's kind of like roll call, and before you wind everything down, turn off the lights. Did everybody turn in their stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And we used to kind of have a strip out in the living room, and have kids put it out there, but then we found that occasionally kids would sneak their item.
Yep.
uh,
Even our kids.
Even
Yep.
their school issued MacBooks,
Yep.
they were able to bust through some of the software and get access to stuff like social media and whatnot.
Minecraft.
Minecraft. I mean, whatever.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't have to be inappropriate stuff. It could
Right.
it could be appropriate stuff that is not appropriate for bedtime because
Yeah.
they should be sleeping.
Yeah.
So, we decided we'll keep it in our bedroom because it's less temptation for them. And, at one point, the schools were issuing a device for each child. It was a requirement. So, we had two or three kids that had MacBooks for school. Then they had their iPhones. Some of them had, iPads,
Yep. Junior high
gaming
had.
systems. I mean, so it was really a pain because the school forced the extra technology on us, and so now we've got 18 devices between six
Yeah.
people that we're trying to monitor
Yeah,
and
when you've
account
got
for.
4 kids and they each had a school device, and then they had, this was like 10 years ago, so they had flip phones or the
Yep.
little slider phones that could just text. That was like their first cell phone. And then they started getting iPods, like for, presents.
Mm,
They asked for iPods and they started getting those for the apps. And now, of course, we've got iPhones and
yeah.
so it's just, I mean, Nate and I really felt like the technology police, and we thought we got to get a handle on this. We can't just let these kids have unlimited, especially at night.
Yeah.
We need to have them turn these in so we can charge them up for school tomorrow and get them a good night's rest.
Yeah. And let's see, number 4. Okay, this will
Yeah.
be the last thing that we talk about before we read some scripture and close up with final thoughts.
Yeah.
But, I guess I have a little story to tell, but I'll let Jennifer go ahead and start.
So when our kids started to use social media and made their first Facebook account, we had an agreement with them, and we have agreements with our kids that we will know what their passwords are to Facebook or to Instagram or whatever. And we know their passwords to their phones as well. This was for several reasons. One is so that we can just check in at any time to make sure that they're behaving appropriately, they're on the up and up. Also, cyberbullying is a real problem,
Yep.
and we wanted to also be able to see that nobody is sending them messages or anything harmful.
Or pictures, sexting,
Yeah, sexting.
all kinds of stuff happens, and it's just a mess. So we have to
Yeah.
be vigilant on those things.
Absolutely. Vigilant is the word to use. And there's even an app, well, there's multiple apps. There's apps that kids can have that look like a fake calculator, and that is used by password, and they can store inappropriate pictures there, because why would you need to hide regular pictures? They would just be on your camera roll. There's other apps that look like a second camera roll picture, and you can again message out of those. You can save inappropriate pictures. So
Yeah.
there's videos that you can search on the internet about dangerous apps, that
And
I think that every parent should know about.
And one way to help prevent that is, on at least on an iPhone, iPad, things like that, you have restrictions. So when your kid gets a new device, you go through with them when they're setting things up, and you set the restrictions. That way, even though there are these secret mature apps, if you have certain restrictions on there,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's a pain because you have something, the restrictions need to be passcode protected, And if they need to adjust something, to download something that's safe, but for some reason it's being blocked, you have to go in there manually, put your password in,
Yep.
change it, allow that. But you can allow settings for downloading apps or deleting apps. And when those things
Mhm.
are selected, it can be a problem because if your kid can just download and delete apps as well, they could download an inappropriate app and then delete it later, and you would never even know it was on there.
Right.
So it is more of a pain. It does restrict them and what they can do. But with a few minutes of your time, a couple times a week, having to enter a passcode, double check some stuff, is that worth, maybe blocking your kid from viewing pornography, or
Mhm.
some, other thing that's going to damage them spiritually, mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally.
Right. So, like Nate said, on the App Store, you can password protect that, put in a code so that your kid can't download an app
Yeah.
or can't do in-app purchases without your code. So,
Yeah.
um, a couple other things along with the passwords that we had our kids agree to is that they would not add friends that they didn't know personally. So we didn't want our kids adding a bunch of friends or followers or whatever app that they might be choosing to be a part of. That really needed to be just people that they knew, not somebody
Yeah.
from that's stalking them from across, the another country.
Yeah.
We also had them agree to keep their accounts on a private setting. They didn't need to have a public profile on Facebook. It's a private Facebook, and so if anybody wanted to friend request them, they could, but that needed to be, um, you know,
Yeah.
something that they had to request.
And every once in a while, look, we would tell our kids, look, we're sorry, but we're going to be friends on your social media so that
Mm-hmm.
we can see what's going on. And every once in a while, we would look through their friends list, and a
Mm-hmm.
couple times we found people on there who shouldn't have been there.
Right.
And, it wasn't intentional on our kids' part, but we saw that somebody was being a scammer or fake or, you know, grooming or whatever the case would be.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful about that. And, there are also some different sites. Probably the one we would recommend the most would be something called Covenant Eyes. Covenant Eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to their website and you can download their app for different devices, phones, tablets, all this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, it is a Christian based site which is trying to help not just kids. I mean, the adults in the home can also be on
Right.
Covenant Eyes, and you can set up accounts for each person. You set up an admin
Mm-hmm.
with passwords, and then you can go through for each person and select, different levels of privacy and
Mm-hmm.
access. Again, you can add in manually sites that are okay, that for whatever reason, stuff is being blocked. They have really good customer service. It's not, an expensive thing. From what we could find out and use, it was like
Yeah.
$15 a month, 10 to
Mm-hmm.
$15 a month, depending on what package you had. And again, it's more work, but we've had success with that in the past.
Yeah, and Covenant Eyes has a really great website with a blog, lots of different articles on, talking to your kids about technology and proper usage, and sample accountability contracts or internet rules.
Yeah.
So it might be a good resource for you if you're interested in finding out more. They also have, along with the app, they have accountability partnerships.
Hmm.
So maybe as your child gets older, you can help them set that up. So if they were to visit a site that wasn't appropriate, their accountability partner would get an email, and you can have a conversation. So that's
Yeah.
really taking it to that next level of responsibility and accountability.
Sure. And that's just a quick story. It's kind of funny, but it just stuck in my mind. Years ago there was this submarine, movie with Sean Connery. I think Alec Baldwin was in that, but it was Hunt for Red October. And Sean Connery was this Russian submarine pilot, this nuclear submarine pilot, and the U.S. is trying to pick up a signal, and they've got a sub that's following, and these Russian sub commanders were known to periodically do checks behind them to make sure to physically check, not just with sonar, but they would
Mm-hmm.
they would do a really sharp turn, quick turn around called a crazy Ivan. And I just think it's pretty funny, but it's a great illustration to keep in your mind. As parents, we have sometimes done crazy Ivans. We encourage you to do crazy Ivans on your
Mm-hmm.
kids' technology.
Yep.
And what that means is periodic unannounced checks where you just say, hey, let me see your phone for a moment, or let me see your laptop, or whatever it is. You do a crazy Ivan, you double check their history, you look, you
Mm-hmm.
open some of the apps, you look for anything suspicious,
Yep.
if there's
Deleted.
anything,
Look in your deleted files
yeah,
and the
look in deleted
deleted camera
files,
roll and.
ask
Mhm.
questions if there's anything that might possibly be a problem. Just clarify. But so crazy Ivans are
Mhm.
are in order, and if you watch that movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But anyway, and we're covering technology here, and we're talking about fighting fire with fire using technology to help monitor. But let's be honest. I mean, the best protection here is going to be the spiritual protection. So, if we are following Deuteronomy 6 and, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1, and all these other scriptures, Proverbs 22, and about training up your children and speaking to them about the Creator, about the Father, and, about His commandments and about His ways and His blessings, that's going to be the best protection.
Right.
So, aside from all of this advice and technological support, get in the Word, get your children in the Word,
Mhm.
instill in them that they have a relationship with their Maker, with
Yeah.
their Father in heaven. And it's not just about protect, through technology and restrict, but it is about their heart and their mindset. And not only that, but prayer, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we
Absolutely.
pray we pray a lot for our kids
Mhm.
in relating to technology, relationships, all of these different issues that we've discussed in 12 episodes on
Right.
Life Matters. So
Yeah, and you're so right, Nate. I mean, we've talked about communicating with our kids. This is just another instance that you can have these um, developmentally appropriate talks with your kids from when they're little.
yeah,
There's also some really great books out there about how to help your kid, if they ever see something that's inappropriate, to come and talk to you. Because, I mean,
and
it's
process
probably
that.
going to happen. And
Yeah,
I'm sorry to say that, but unless you just never let them have access, it may happen. But that line of communication, it's not just that we're trying to be so restrictive. We put these things into place on top of having talks with our
yeah,
kids about why we want to keep them safe, what is out there that we don't
yeah.
want them to be exposed to.
Communication is super important. So these are just, 4 or 5 major categories relating to parenting and technology concerns. But we're going to wrap up with scripture, and then we'll finish up the lesson and discussion for today. But a couple of scriptures to keep in mind, building on some of the parenting and relationship scriptures we've shared before. 1 Peter 5, verse 8. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion walketh about. He seeketh whom he may devour. And one of the ways that he devours people, adults and children, teenagers, everybody, is he uses technology. He uses temptation. He uses lust. He uses pride. He uses, just dangerous things and dangerous individuals. So we can apply that scripture to this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And then another scripture that's also helpful to consider that I think applies here, 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 through 17. Love not the world, and that could be a whole application to
Mm-hmm.
technology, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, and this applies to technology, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of God, that's Elohim Yahuwah, abideth forever. So we need to keep these scriptures in mind. These scriptures applied to people in the day in which they were written and spoken, and they also apply to us today, even in
Mm-hmm.
reference to technology. So we hope that this has been an encouragement to you. We hope that you've got some extra tools in your parenting toolbox. If we can be of encouragement to you, if you have questions, if you have suggestions, you can reach out to us at nate@firedfortruth.org. That's Nate, fired, F-O-R, truth.org. And, we'll do our best to get back with you. We'll be
Yeah.
continuing this parenting series. For at least we have at least a few more topics, maybe several
Definitely.
more,
Yep.
and then we'll see where we go from there. But this has been Life Matters with Nate and Jen, episode number 12, Parenting Technology Concerns. We hope that you'll be blessed, that you will help to keep your kids safe emotionally, spiritually, physically, and we will see you next time.